Hi, I'm Kathy Elstead. I'm an author. I've written two children's books. One is The Long-Legged Turtle, and the other one is I Love Being Me. And today I want to talk to you about something very special to me. It's called my life book. In 1997, I was teaching first grade, and I went to hear a lady, Lucy Calkins, talk about writing. I'm one of those people who like to get there early and get a front row seat, and I did. And Lucy Calkins walked in, she walked up to the podium, she took off her shoes, and she talked to us the rest of the day in her stocking feet. And that's when I knew I was going to like what she had to say, and I did. She talked to us about a writer's notebook, and I really liked her idea, but I felt that it was more about my life. So I like to call this my life book. And what a life book is, it's just a place to collect little bits and pieces of your life. Things that are important to you, things that you want to remember. I use a composition notebook to collect these things in. And a couple years ago, around this time when school supplies were out, I found this great cover. So what I like is that when my life book is full, I just pop it out and put the new one in. I also like that it had pockets, and that allows me to put some big things in and maybe things I don't actually want to permanently fix in my life book, but I still want to have. The first thing I do with my new life book is I like to have a title page for it. And I always write, "This is my life book, this is my life," because that's what this book is all about, me and my life. And I also like to draw some of my favorite things. I love my family. I was starting to write about Longlegs, the turtle. I love to walk the beach, walk in the sand along the beach, the ocean, and so I put that in there, and I just love to be outside. So then I just start collecting. There is no right and wrong to this. You can collect any way you want. You can collect anything you want. The thing is that it's something that's important to you. Sometimes I have photographs, sometimes I write, sometimes I draw. I cut out a little art project I did with my grandsons. I read about this lady, and I loved her philosophy. She was 108 years old, and she said her philosophy was laugh always, be grateful for everything, good and bad. So I wrote it, and then I drew a flower around it to kind of make it stand out so I see it real easily. Because I do love to walk the beach so much, I really felt that I should have sand in my life book. So I placed my life book like this, sprinkled some sand, put a piece of clear packaging tape over it, and I now have sand. And all about our trip to South Haven. I even have a little piece of my first piece of beach glass that I found. And so, like I said, there's nothing you can't do or nothing you can't put in here. One time, my girlfriend's father-in-law passed away. He's a very interesting man, and so these were the memory cards, and I really wanted to have both sides of it. So I decided to punch a hole and put a brad, and then way I can easily get to both sides of his memory card. All kinds of things. Even one time I was at Huntington Beach where my daughter lives, and they have these great little markets on the beach, and we were walking along and we found this place where you can make these really beautiful silk scarves, and it was so fun. And so I wanted to remember the day because my daughter Tiff, her husband Ken, and I, the three of us, made the scarf together, so it's really special. So I took one of the gloves that I wore and I taped it into my life book. So there's a candy wrapper, there's articles, anything. Last year at Christmas, I sent my grandchildren a letter asking them to write me a list of what they'd like for Christmas. And I sent them each a stamped envelope. And when I got them in the mail, it was so cute because they call me Grandma Plato, and each one of my 3 letters were addressed to Grandma Plato. So I had to put that in my life book because they were so, so special. So anything that means something to you. The other thing I like to do at the back of my life book is I like to keep a couple pages where I put pizzazzy words, phrases that I might have heard or read somewhere, something that I really liked and I'd love to remember, and I don't know, maybe someday tuck it into my one of my pieces of writing. And like for example, my little honey bunny, I thought that was so cute. The word snarky, I love the word snarky. I even love to say the word snarky. Snarky, it's just like so fun. Zaza zoom, and you make my heart smile. I thought those were some examples. So anything that is important to you, anything you want to remember, goes into your life book. Now the great thing about these life books is that it gives me a source of helping, it helps me write. I think of each one of these little bits and pieces as a little seed. Sometimes I'll look through my life book and I'll find a seed to help me start writing a story, or sometimes I'll look through my life book and look through and collect a number of little seeds to help me develop my story. But basically what you do is you take a seed and you take it through the writing process and you grow it into a story. And that's what I would teach my first graders. In January, they would all get their own life book and start collecting. And then we would use our life book to go and pick a seed, take it through the writing process, and grow it into the story. But I also use this very much in helping me develop my first book, The Long-Legged Turtle. And that's something else that I want to share with you today. How did I do that? Well, it started out, believe it or not, shopping. I was shopping with my best friend Linda. We've been best friends for 59 years. And we were in TJ Maxx. We were waiting in line to purchase our things. And when I was standing in line, I saw this bag. And I thought, oh my gosh, that bag is so cute. So I picked it up and I started looking at it. And I was wondering why. And I realized, oh my goodness, a little 6-year-old had drawn the pictures. So of course, being a first grade teacher, retired first grade teacher, but being a teacher, I loved it. So I thought, I'm going to get this bag. And so I'm waiting in line and I'm looking at it and I'm trying to figure out, well, what is it that's so cute about this? Well, I realized that all the turtles had long legs. And in all my years of teaching and all my years of reading tons and tons of books to children, I'd never heard or read a story about a long-legged turtle. Now, one of my dreams was to write a children's book someday, and I thought that could be fun, to write about a turtle with long legs. So I bought the bag, I came home, I took a picture of it, glued it into my life book, wrote a little bit about it, and tucked it away until after Christmas because there's too much going on for me to be able to write a story at that time. So in January I took my life book out and I found my picture, and so I decided, thinking about how would I go about writing a story about long legs. So you found out that I decided to write about a long-legged turtle. I gave him the name Longlegs. Well, I also had to figure out, well, what kind of book do I want to write? Well, I know that little children love to be able to read chapter books. So I decided to make it a chapter book. Chapter 1 would be how he came to be. Well, I didn't really know that much about how turtles came to be. So I went online and I did some research. And I used that research to help me write chapter 1. And I found out that the mama turtle swims to the place where she was born. She digs a hole. She lays about 100 soft-shelled eggs. She buries them in the sand. About 2 months later, they start hatching. They start poking out, and hundred of these little turtles start poking out and making their way down to the ocean. Now, in my story, one turtle was different. He had long legs and red and white striped stockings. And the whole thing about my story is that, yes, Longlegs is different, but he's happy and everybody loves him. And at the end of each chapter, he always says, life is good. So I had chapter 1 done. So then I had to think about, okay, so now who are the characters in my story going to be? So I would go through my life book and I started looking through, getting some ideas, and I thought, why not my 5 youngest grandchildren? That would be so fun to have them in my book. So I decided to put them in as my characters. So I put Brooke and Lauren together, And I thought, well, what could Brooke and Lauren do with long legs? Again, looking through my life book, and I remembered, oh my gosh, we all loved having tea parties. Sometimes they dress up in boas, sometimes floppy hats, sometimes a little makeup, a little lipstick, and I even had a special little tea set that I always used with them. And we started having tea parties when they were little babies. We would pretend there was tea in the teapot, and when they got a little older, we moved to water. A little older, we moved to juice, and a little older, we moved to real tea. So I thought, oh, what a great idea for Longlegs to meet up with Brooke and Lauren. And Brooke and Lauren also loved playing in their backyard. They had a great swing set. Lauren loved to swing, and they all loved to go down the bumpy slide. And then one time we were out in a park, and this little butterfly landed on Brooke. So I have Brookie going around catching butterflies. And so then they go off to have a tea party, and they dressed up with their floppy hats and boas, and they have their little tea sets. And it's very similar to the one that we used when they were little. And they end up having a delightful tea party and getting to know Longlegs. Well, then I had to think about Zach. So what could I have Zach? Now he was a little older. So what could Zach do? So again, I went through my life book and started looking and thinking. And sure enough, I remembered, oh gosh, Zach and I used to tell scary stories to Zach when I would tuck him in at night. And so I thought that would be great. And it started out where I was telling him that my grandpa told me scary stories. And I could only remember 2 of my grandpa's scary stories. So I told those to Zach. And Zach says, well, I want more, Grandma. And I said, well, honey, I don't remember anymore. And so he looked at me and he said, well, make some up. So that's what we did. When I would tuck Zach in, I would make up scary stories for him. And one time I started making up this story. It took place in a deep, dark cave. And I got a little too scary, and I could see that he was really getting scared, and I did want him to go to sleep. So then I made this silly, goofy ending, and we laughed, and we had such a good time with it. So I thought, yes, I'm going to have Zach meet Longlegs in a deep, dark cave. And that is what Zach does. He goes into a deep, dark cave, and he meets up with the long-legged turtle. So that leads me to John and Jimmy, my 2 youngest grandsons. Now, John and Jimmy have vivid imaginations, and they're very adventurous. When you would go over to their house, I would never know where I was going to end up. In a jungle, in dinosaur land, maybe in outer space. Never knew where we were going to be, but it was always going to be fun. And so I had to think of something that they could do. Well, I went back and started looking through my life book again, and I remembered, oh yeah, at Christmas we had these magical glasses. They were cardboard, and I got them at Cracker Barrel, and you would put them on, and if they were the snowman glasses, you would look at the lights on the Christmas tree, and all the lights would turn into snowmen, or Santa, or snowflakes, or reindeer. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give John and Jimmy magical glasses because we had so much fun with them. Well, then I thought, well, what could they see that would be magical? I mean, sure, there'd be long legs, but it's not exactly magical. And so I went back and looked through my life book some more, and I remembered, oh, I love spiders. And I thought, oh, what could spiders do that would be magical? Well, they could spin a magical web, a web that was every color of the rainbow, and then some, and it sparkled. So that's what I had happen. So John and Jimmy put on magical glasses, and they went off into the woods, and they met up with Longlegs, and they found out about a spider named Scarlet, who spun magical webs. And so that is how I used my life book to help me write my first story. So the wonderful thing about a life book is it's a place that you collect little bits and pieces of your life that turns into little seeds. And you can take those little seeds and grow them into awesome stories. So I'm so grateful that you listened to me today. I hope you liked learning about my life book, but most importantly, I sure hope that you will go and start and create your own life book and see what wonderful little bits and pieces you can make. I'm Kathy Elstead. I'm an author. I've written 2 children's books.